Ladies and gentlemen, presenting the nerdiest competition ever created by the Language of Bromance team. In this corner, obsessed with Star Wars and anything with swords, Richard! And in this corner, obsessed with the Ninja Turtles and scared of anything from the ocean, Shawn! Brought to you as a Pod Bros exclusive in association with the LOB Army. Tonight's competition is a Language of Bromance Draft.
What's up, everybody? I'm Richard.
And I'm Shawn.
And together we are speaking the language of bromance. This one's a little different.
It's a draft episode.
I do have a fear, and I'll let you go ahead, and then I will explain to you my fear.
Oh, so it's a draft episode, Richard.
Yes.
But if you are big into the history of the language of bromance, you will know that 6 years ago, on June 21st, which if you're a good listener and you're listening to this on that day, this Sunday it comes out, it is
Proud
June
of you.
21st. We released our very first episode ever. And our 6-year anniversary is falling on a draft episode, our 56th ever draft. So we thought we'd inception this a little bit, and we would draft our favorite Language of Bromance episodes.
Okay, so how do we do this without sounding like we're just jerking each other off?
It's going to be impossible because as I re-listened to a bunch of these episodes, I found out that we are fucking hilarious. There was some that I went back to, and I remember them being funny, but then re-listening to them, like trying not to laugh my ass off while listening was pretty impossible.
I honestly, like, I thought about it, and I really actually kind of like this because, 6 years of episodes, one episode a week, that's math episodes. And so if I'm, let's say I'm just, I'm just showing up, I've been listening to Joe Rogan for 6 years, and then I'm like, you know what? I wonder if there's any more of these podcasts that I, like this guy sounds okay. And then it comes
to
to
Joe
us.
Rogan listener, it'd be more like, oh, dude, I totally love these podcasts. These things are fly as hell.
Stop it. That man's made stupid money.
Oh, dude, he just sold his soul to Spotify for
he did.
$10 billion.
Yeah, he did.
Which
No
I'd probably
shame
do it
in
for
that
$10,
game.
So, oh, no, none at all.
But like if I had just come up and seen this Language of Bromance, I'd be like, holy shit, there's over 400 fucking episodes here. Like, I'm not gonna fuck with this. I'm not gonna fuck with this at all. There's too much. It's way too much. This way, you listen to this one, and then it lets you know what the quick hits are. Like, I can hit these, and I get, like it's like a best bits.
Yeah, it's kind of like a top 10. And this is a good kind of episodes. Like people are like, well, which episodes should I listen to? It's like, hey, listen to this and see which one of these spark your fancy.
Exactly.
Let's see. So before we get into like the actual draft, as I was listening to some of these episodes, it brought back a lot of kind of like the history of the show.
Yeah.
I thought it'd be kind of interesting to talk a little bit about it.
Okay.
So one of the first thing I noticed is kind of the evolution of our logo.
Yes.
So we had talked about this before, but early on we had a logo we got from Fiverr. And it's kind of like our traditional blue logo that we had for a long time.
Yeah.
With the turtle and the Jedi.
Yeah.
But it was just two kind of generic clip art characters. And I don't know if you remember when I tried to get this set up for us, but I was going through Fiverr and I told them what I wanted and they came up with that. And I was like, yeah, but the one on the left, Richard, he has longer brown hair, not black hair or whatever it was. And so what they did is they just basically took like a clip art hairpiece and put it over top of it so you could still see the other color at the bottom. And I was like, just go back. Go back. That's fine. But we got V2, which we had one of our loyal listeners draw up for us.
Yeah. I think that's the one we stuck with the longest, wasn't it?
Yeah, because we set that up, I think, like around episode 25 or episode 30. And we had that all the way up to like 290. So that's been kind of what we've seen for a long time. We shifted into the anime one for about a month or two. And we were kind of like, I think I was the one not feeling it as much. But as I was getting some tattoo work done and everything was going on, the other tattoo artist had some downtime. So I was like, dude, if you want, you can draw up a new logo for us. Here's what I'm thinking, because I liked his artwork. And I was like, I would totally love to commission you for this.
Yeah.
And that's where he came up with our current logo, which I've kind of coined our Only Hope logo, which I think is really awesome. Yeah, yeah. Because it kind of looks like, you've got the little, hey, Language of Bromance, you're my only hope kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. I like it.
The other thing that really kind of stood out to me too, listening through these, is the quality of our audio. So going back, I think you've used your same mic pretty much from the get-go.
Yes, but in terms of my thing when it came, because my audio, especially somewhere in the middle there, my audio was like terrible. And I think like some of it had to do with like noise gates and stuff like that I had on there. But the other thing was just rooms. Cause like I've recorded in a lot of different rooms. You pretty much have stayed in the same spot.
Yeah. I lived in my old house and I recorded pretty much just in that house. And then when I moved here, and I've only recorded in the office since. So any episode that's been not here on location, I've recorded somewhere else. But like my mic, so when I started, I had a USB mic, which plugged right into my machine.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got a Blue Yeti for a little bit, which I still have. But then I got my newest mic, which I've had since like maybe I started using it the episode after the Oh Baby Yeah Baby when we talked about Justin Bieber.
Oh, okay.
Because my audio was shit in that episode. But moving forward with this, it's been pretty consistent. But that's one thing I've been pretty proud of, is as we've gotten to probably about like year 1.5, I feel like our audio has really kind of been, I wouldn't say top tier, but definitely good.
Not shitty.
Yeah, and the compliment we've gotten before is like, oh, we didn't realize you guys record in 2 different places, which I think is kind of a nice little pat on the back.
Yeah, I agree.
I thought it was clever how Richard's closing thoughts kind of came organically. So in our first few episodes, there really isn't like a, hey, what's your Richard's closing thought?
Yeah.
But you kind of started doing that anyway. And so around like episode 25, I saw we started actually calling that out.
Yeah.
But even our intros was kind of organic as well.
Yeah, you're right. It was. The one thing that I found interesting is so usually our episodes we stick to kind of one thing and we go on like on that one thing for, an hour and some change or a little less. Like it ends when it ends.
Yeah.
But like for the first, I can't even think how many it started as like, oh, what do you got going on? Well, this is what I have going on. And then after about like, maybe 30 minutes of that, then it'd be like, well, I have this thing here that I thought was funny. I'll read it. And then it became that like, oh, the thing. Now what we do is we get on and we still do the like, hey, what's going on? How are you? Yeah. We still do that. It's just that we don't record that bit. If we did, every episode would be 2.5 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I think it's kind of funny too, because that all happened again kind of organically. Like I think probably an episode or two that we pick as our favorite would probably kind of show where that evolution happened.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt like there was just like this golden age of our podcast where for about like a year we had just so many funny ass stories that played for a whole episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the other thing that I thought was kind of interesting too was our bumpers for Pod Bros. We haven't really done anything like that for a while, but that's where we created like the Star Wars one, the superhero one, Potters on the Wall, the Stuck in the Sewer.
I think you wrote all those. He wrote all those, by the way.
Yeah,
if you couldn't tell, that was all Shawn.
I don't think I had a script for those specifically. It was more of just like hey, I thought you'd do this, then we kind of improv.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to see kind of which episodes you pick. But I mean, it's just like I said, I think I always kind of wonder if our podcast is like, it's good for us. I think like I enjoy it, but going back, I could see like, well, I picked this episode from 3 years ago. Is it really as funny as I thought in the moment?
And honestly, the first thing I did is I just scrolled through and just looked at the names. And as soon as I'd read the name, then I knew exactly what I'm like. Oh, that was when we talked about this.
Yeah. Well, so my strategy for this was I did that. I went through names. I'm like, okay, well, download these ones that I'm like, I think I remember this being funny. Richard, I ended up with 44 episodes. Oof. So behind the curtain, my drafts, what I do, it's like we said, 7 rounds NFL style. So I have 7 picks. You have 7 picks.
Right.
So I pick at least 14 things typically.
Right.
And it's usually just like if for some way if you pick everything that I had too, I'd at least have enough items to pick.
Yeah.
And usually kind of towards the end when like if you hear my and buts, I only have 1 or 2 things. I've probably deleted a bunch of the things I had on there because it's like, I mean, this would work if it came down to the wire. So like this, I had 44 episodes.
Yeah.
And I listened to most of them that I could. And I got it down probably still past like maybe 20 that I have on here. Probably like 16 to 17, I'd say I'm going to have to choose between. But then there's still some that I feel like honorable mention I have to talk about.
Oh, okay. But so what I did is I went through. Like I said, I went through. I was like, okay, I was like this one, and I think I didn't get to 20. I got to 14, and I was like, okay, I got to stop, or else it's gonna be. I mean, there were ones that definitely was like, ooh, maybe.
Yeah, I think a couple of the early ones are in that boat where it's like it's more of a like, oh, this is a nostalgia feel one.
Yeah.
But like when you start getting more in the middle, like the year 2, year 3, it's just like this is where it was super funny. But I'm ready to hear what you have. So like we said, this is our 56th other, and we're going to do this as our 6-year Broniversary Draft. So it's 7-round NFL style where we flip-flop picks back and forth. Back in the day, we flipped a penny to see who won, and I did. So odd drafts, I get first pick. Even drafts, Richard gets the first pick. This is an even draft. So Richard, you will get the first pick here. And what we're doing is our episode. So we're going to pick our favorite episodes from the Language of Bromance library. Yeah. So Richard,
the question is are you going to turn this into a clip show? Like, are we going to say a title and then talk about it, and then Shawn goes and picks like the funniest snippet he can find?
I thought about that, but with 14. Even if you do like 2 or 3 minutes a piece, it's going to be like an hour and a half long.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I figured unless it's something super funny, we'll probably just chit-chat about them.
No, I like it. All right. So I go first.
Yeah, so episode number and title, if you have those handy.
So number, I don't know. I didn't go with numbers. I didn't put any numbers on mine. I just went with titles.
I can find them.
Because as soon as I saw the title, I was like, yep. Plus, I mean, let's be fair. I'm almost positive like most of these are on. We're sharing lists.
That's true.
I gotta go. So I gotta grab this one early because I want it on my list because I love this one so much. Shawn, you know exactly which one I'm talking about. Yep. See, he's already nodding because he knows. You ready? Planet of the Emus.
Oh yes, this is where I feel like we've figured out that. We are that
history is
show.
Fucking hilarious.
There's that as well. This was episode 84. This was one of our most downloaded episodes too.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh.
So this was the episode we released.
Thank you to 10 people.
Yeah. No, it was pretty big.
Yeah. I was gonna say that one I think got to like 60K or 65K, somewhere around there.
Somewhere big, yeah, because it was one that this was about the time I figured out, like, oh, maybe I should post some stuff on Reddit. And so I posted this on there, and it was like, Planet of the Emus. There was a great emu war where the Australian army actually lost. And like I flipped to my this was back in the day when I would like look at downloads like multiple times on a Sunday. I was like, oh, it's at 30. Oh, it's at 60. It's at 200. It's at 400. It's at 1,000. And I was like, Richard, we fucking made it.
We did it! And that's when Shawn went and bought a Cadillac.
I did.
And then we came out with another episode, and then he took back the Cadillac.
Yep. Within a week, I had gone up on high and up on low. But it's funny because this episode's all about the emu.
All over the interior.
You said your wife was out of town this week.
She was.
But we talked about like the emus fighting this war, the bunny reinforcements. I thought the letters of the Great Emu War were awesome.
Yeah, that's funny.
This was one I went back to and listened to. So kind of like this one fell on my list because if I like my goal was just like maybe listen to the first 20, 30 minutes of an episode. But this is one I finished. And at the end, we're talking about the treaty negotiation with the emus.
Yes.
And you're doing the emu voice, and it's like, what? You can't have my wife. I think this was the one during the second podcast movement we went to. We were talking to people about this specific episode, and they were kind of like, "Oh, you're an improv show," and we're like,
"What's an improv show?" Is that where you just make bullshit up? Because that's us. Nailed it.
All right. So was there anything else you want to talk about on Planet of the Emus?
Let's see. I like the letters. I just like the description. This was also one where I was teasing you with this one like throughout like 2 weeks. I was like, you wait. I was like, I've got this story. I was like, I'm going to tell you about it, and you're going to be like, what the fuck is this? So I remember I teased this one with you for quite a while.
So the only thing I caught on this is I remember when you were telling me about the story, and we kind of like talked a little bit about it, and just like whenever we get prepped for it, before we hit record, we kind of already jump into it. Because I mean, the conversations we have are just us.
Yeah.
And I remember like, as I went back and re-listened to it, I'm like, well, would it feel like it was forced? Like it was a kind of conversation that we finally recorded? I can't remember which part that was in there, but there was a part where we kind of like made the joke, but then we made the joke again, which doesn't happen a ton.
Yeah.
But it felt natural still in the episode, which I felt pretty good about.
I agree. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have. But it's good. It's a learning experience, and it's hilarious. So, Planet of the Emus.
And I think that one, like a year later, somebody was like, "Oh yeah, the dollop did that." I was like,
"Yeah, I saw that too," and I was like, fuck off."
Yeah, they're like, "Oh, they're already famous." Assholes. Well, my first round pick, Richard, I want to go way back. I feel like this is the episode that really sparked me to want to write, really sparked my idea for a scary movie. And it kind of was like a very much two guys trying to feel each other out on this podcast journey. And it's episode 2.
And we still feel each other out.
We do. Episode 2, Hey, Zombie Bear. So this episode opens up with us talking about sharks in the river. Then we start talking about the guy that... the bear guy that was in love with bears.
Yeah. See, this is what I'm talking about. Like the first few, it's like, oh, I have this, oh, I have this, oh, I have this. And we kind of like quick hit.
And we talked about the bloop. Like we talked about that for a bit.
Oh, yeah, the bloop.
Because I was talking about how I was scared of sharks. And he told me about the bloop. And then we go on this conversation about pubic hair and how we feel about it on women and on ourselves. We're talking about kind of with the bears and stuff and being scared. And we talked about, I thought this was funny, how we'd go on runs and we would be like, there'd be signs in California that say, watch out for cougars. And we talked about the 40-year-old cougars trying to chase us down while we're running, which is funny now because we're like way closer to 40 than we were then.
They're not chasing us anymore, Shawn. But I'm looking for young meat.
But the key to this episode was essentially us creating this zombie bear movie.
Zombie Nazi bears.
Let me show you my bears.
Yeah. You always forget don't leave out the Nazi part, because that just makes it even more terrifying.
The part that did make into the script, apparently there was a chicken that we're going to have involved in this too. But I like this because, I'd kind of gotten back to like, okay, well, I guess I'll write a chapter book, right? Because, that's what you can do. Mm-hmm. And then finally I'm like, well, wait a minute. Like, why don't I try writing a script? What would I write a script about? Light bulb, zombie bears. And so it was the very first script I ever written. I did get to hand that script to Kevin Smith, which I'm sure he promptly threw away.
Which is fine.
But yeah.
It's fine.
Because, I mean, he's like, great. Now some jackass in Missouri is going to be like, hey, those Bratzies sound an awful lot like Nazi bears. But early episode, what are some of your thoughts on that?
I think that's when we were still very much searching for a tone.
Agreed, 100%.
Like an overall tone. I felt like we were at that point, we were still uncomfortable, and because we were uncomfortable, like, we would occasionally like make the tenor of the show more serious.
Yeah,
but then,
for sure.
But then we would just unintentionally, one of us would be like, yeah, and then they're Nazis.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we're just still feeling each other, and it's just kind of cool because it's kind of living in your obscurity at that point too. Like, it wasn't quite like, I say success, but we had a big jump with the Emu War episode.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh my God, this is easy. But with that, we're still like, we hadn't even released the episodes yet, I think, when we recorded that.
Yes.
Because I think we had episode 0, 1, and 2 ready before we released it to the public.
I thought we had more than that. I thought we had like the first 5.
Maybe it was 5. It was a decent chunk. But yeah, we had no feedback yet on it. We had nothing. We just recorded a couple to get kind of queued up and then sent those out.
Yeah.
But even I noticed the audio quality. Like, that was only the 3rd episode of my life that I've ever edited for our show. So, there's a lot of spots now where I listen to it and I hear a little bit of dead air. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, cut that. But it's kind of like how we got to where we are. Very much the first step of a lot. And that's episode 2, Hey Zombie Bear.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Number 2. I'm gonna go with an episode that I love because I can't remember which one of us. I off the top of my head, I don't remember which one of us came up with the actual joke, but it still makes me chuckle. And that is, okay. So not only is there a joke that I love in it, but there's also an entire story about love, about loss, about understanding, and farm animals. Shawn, for my second round pick, the Farm Upstate is a restaurant.
Oh, episode 190. This is on my list too. And this is one I just re-listened to. And again, I'm like, this is the one I listened to today because I'm trying to get through some of this. And I was
Which one of us came up with the Farm Upstate joke? Because I liked it. The Farm Upstate. They went to a Farm Upstate. The Farm Upstate is a restaurant. No!
But it's a great episode because we're talking about this elusive cow, and we come up with this whole scenario where she's trying to find. I think Emily was the name of the girl.
Emily, it was Emily. Yeah, Emily, because Emily went off to college.
Yes,
and the cow was gonna go look for Emily. It was like Homeward Bound.
Yeah, and what was keeping cows from being able to talk was being at the farm. So when Betsy got released, she's like looking around and talking to people. And, after we had like this whole scene where the farmer was trying to chase them, and Betsy ends up going to Mardi Gras and meeting John Cena and marrying him.
That's right. And they make sweet, sweet, passionate love.
The funny part that got me giggling was Betsy lived to be like 20.
When John Cena was like, Betsy, you saw me.
You could always see me. Because we get to the point where, like, in the story, Betsy only lived to be like 12 or 20. So she's in the hospital bed about ready to die. And like the vet and doctor's like, she's a fucking cow. And John Cena's talking to her and he leaves. And, Betsy has her moment with Emily. It's like, God, he's stupid. But the sex is great. That's one, I believe that's one of the episodes that, we find this story like, I found this thing. It might be kind of funny. It's kind of short. But, we might be able to come up with something. And it's like right at an hour of this ridiculous journey that none of us knew we were going to get to go on.
Yes. I love it. I loved it. That was a great story, too. There were 2 dumb cops in there.
Yeah, I think one of the cops ended up getting shot, actually got shot by a tranquilizer dart.
There were 2 dumb cops, and then there was the farmer.
We played it so that the cop was getting ready to shoot him, and his sergeant's like, pull the trigger, kill it. No, I can't kill it. It's a cow. I can't do it, Sarge.
I cannot take the
shot. Oh, man, that's a great one.
Yeah, so that's my number 2 pick. And again, this is one that I didn't even listen to. I just saw the title, and as soon as I saw the title, I was like, oh, that's the one with fucking, there was a cow, and Emily was there, and there were 2 dumb cops, and John Cena was in it for some reason.
I haven't listened to the second one, but there is a Farm Upstate part 2.
There is a part 2. That's the other part. That's the other thing I was going to say is that there is a part 2,
which I think is a different cow altogether.
Yes.
Because shortly after that episode, we found another story. We're like, wait a minute, is this like a thing that happens?
But yeah, that's my pick. The story of Bessie and Emily and John Cena and a Farm Upstate.
Betsy, the Farm Upstate. The Farm Upstate is a restaurant. All right, Richard, for my second round pick, this was an episode when I saw it. I remembered the title piece of it. I was like, oh my God, I remember that being so funny. But I forgot how hilarious this episode was just in general. And that's episode 87, No in the Mud.
That was on my list.
So this episode starts out pretty tame. So was it the second or third guy to walk on the moon? Edgar was his name.
Yeah.
He was talking about how aliens stopped a nuclear war. And we started talking about this whenever we recorded the episode was actually days after he died. So we started talking about this episode. Yeah, it was like he died February 3rd or 5th or something like that. And the day we recorded this episode, I think was 5 days later.
Wow.
Because we made some joke and I'm like, oh shit, Richard, he's not doing that because he just died a week ago. But what's funny is we're like, okay, well, let's honor this man's memory. And we talk about how he was so turned on by the moon that he's the only man to jerk off on the moon.
He jerked off. Didn't he jerk? He jerked off on a moon rock and then brought the moon rock back, right?
No, that's a different. There's another moon rock story. That's a different episode. But it was essentially he's up there. He's like, "Hey, space bro code, guys, space bro code." They're like, "No." We didn't fucking think we had to talk to you about this, Edgar.
Yeah. That's Edgar.
Oh, Edgar. Man. And so what's funny is we start talking then about the actual story, and we build this whole world about how aliens would come to Burning Man.
Yes.
The other thing about this episode was we do this a few times, but it had a mid-show podcast ad. I think it was for the Say What podcast.
Oh, okay.
So we had a couple things with other podcasters, and this is one that had that. But then we get into the second half, which was fucking hilarious even more because now we start talking about the seeding the plant theory.
Oh,
where aliens came, and we talked about some alien that came here.
Because one of us watched Prometheus.
Yeah, because Edgar, one of these aliens came to our planet before it was just dinosaurs, and Edgar he came and he jerked off into the mud.
It made no in the mud.
Yeah, so it wasn't I kept oh wait, was that the point where we talked about the no in the mud? No, Richard, it was the redneck aliens that were watching over our planet, talking about Mewob, and they were talking about him. Did you hear about Mewob? How he made no in the mud? It's like, ooh, he's gonna get in trouble. But it's one of those that just like the whole episode keeps me laughing. And like what I love too about those episodes, whenever I hear you laugh, like your genuine, like just deep laugh where I see you throw your head back and you're barely on mic, just like tickles me so.
You did
so
that
much.
recently, and it was the fucking. We were talking about the military animals, and I was talking about a military bear that would get drunk. And then you made a fucking Goldilocks. Somebody's sleeping in my bed.
Oh man,
That just crushed me.
I feel like going through all these, like we are probably a little bit more clever than we give ourselves credit for.
Well, that's true because I don't give myself any credit.
Yeah. But my second pick was episode 87. No in the mud.
All right, for my third pick. This was a fun story because I saw the title, I listened to it, and I had the images that were conjuring in my head from listening to us talk about it was what I really liked. Shawn, my third pick, it's a story about squirrels. It's a story about suburbia, and it's a story about flamethrowers. Suburban Arsonist.
What episode number is that? Episode 66.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, this was when I was drinking more heavily than I do now. Because I was drinking dragon's milk in that episode.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what got us kicked on that topic.
Yeah. So there was a guy. So the story was that there was a guy that was selling flamethrowers, like to just normal people, that you could go and you could buy a flamethrower.
That man was Elon Musk. He's kind of become a big deal since then.
It's like, what do you need a flamethrower for? Squirrel problem. And then so it was the squirrels were hiding at your house, and there's a guy with a flamethrower. It's like, you see any squirrels? And then you're like, no squirrels. And then the squirrels are like, please don't tell him we're here. He's so upset.
Oh shit, that's funny.
Pest control. Whoosh. And the guy in my head, the guy was selling the flamethrowers, like wore glasses and had a mullet and a jacket made out of an American flag.
We did a whole late night TV show.
Yeah, you did a TV ad about it. And there's like somebody with a guitar in the back, like, wow! Extreme.
Do you want to burn some fucking squirrels in your backyard? Squirrels coming after your nuts. Arr.
Yeah. Make sure their nuts are roasted. There's like people jumping on motorcycles over him and fireworks going off.
That's an early one too. That's like 3 months, like what would it be, 15 months into the show, episode 66.
Yeah. So this was, like I said, it was a guy that was selling flamethrowers that you could buy. I think they were cheap too. They were like, well, not cheap, but they were like $700. $700, Shawn. You can buy yourself a flamethrower.
Yeah, I remember. I think the whole time we were talking like, holy shit, like these are expensive. We can never afford one. But then I think at some point we did say the price, like, holy shit, we're getting 6 of them.
Yeah, and then it was like, where is this legal? Apparently, it was legal everywhere. You could legally own a flamethrower in the world
because they were classified not as flamethrowers, but something else. But they were flamethrowers.
They were flamethrowers.
You know what? I bet Elon listened to that episode and he's like, you know what? They're onto something.
Yeah.
This isn't a flamethrower. It's totally a flamethrower.
Fuck you. I send people into space.
It's true. And he brings the rocket back.
Yeah. Ain't that some shit?
Next, New York to LA in 20 minutes.
So if you want to hear about a guy in suburbia shooting things with a flamethrower and Shawn saving an entire family of squirrels, you check out Suburban Arsonist.
Oh, I like it. Let's see. Oh man, this is kind of tough. But I'm going to go with, I got 2. I'm going to go with this one. This is one I recently listened to. And it's interesting to me because shortly after we recorded this episode, I was actually at a hotel named after this guy.
Oh, shit.
So this is an episode about a journeyman, a traveler, an adventurer by the name of Captain James Cook. Hook? No, Cook, you son of a bitch. Richard, this is episode 169, Captain James Cook, Fish Muffins. So what I loved about this episode was, again, we built this whole story, and we talk about Cook and like how he wanted to be a sea captain, but they said, well, your name's Cook, so you have to cook.
Yeah.
And he sucked at it. And he made fish muffins. And we're like, fish muffins is a horrible idea. They would mold on the ship. And so we build this whole story. Because if you remember, James Cook went to like Antarctica up to Alaska.
Yeah.
And he ended up dying in Hawaii after he decided that he wanted to kidnap one of the kings, I think.
One of the princesses.
Yeah. I think it was one of the kings. Like it wasn't a girl, one of the ladies.
Oh, yeah. No, you're right. You're right.
And he got stabbed with a knife that he was either given or gave as a gift.
Yes, that he gave.
But the funny part about this is like, well, we didn't know what his ship name was, so we decided to call it Raw Dog Anal. So the whole time as he's coming in place, he's like announcing himself as like, prepare to be docked by Raw Dog Anal. Which what made this even funnier is we talked about like the sailors as they would get to ports and they'd be at sea for a long time, that they would jump in and try to mate with the manatees because they thought they were mermaids.
Yes.
The funny part about this too is I guess this would have been a lot after No No in the Mud, but we talked about in the article, it's like, oh, and NASA named some of the ships, some of the spacecrafts after James Cook's famed ships. We're like, wait, there was a spaceship named Raw Dog Anal. But again, this was one where I think it was just kind of like, this story seems like it could be kind of dark, but let's see what we can do with it. Because it was about a guy who ended up going to an island. They thought he was their fertile sex god at first. And like ate too much of their food and like kidnapped people, and then end up getting killed there because they're like, hey, you're not a god. Stab, stab, stab. But it ended funny because of RDA. So my third round pick is going to go is episode 169, Captain James Cook Fish Muffins.
All right. For my next pick, so earlier we were talking about Nazi bears, and that got me thinking. Well, not just then, but I saw the zombie bear episode, and I was like, I remember when we did the episode, I was like, I wonder, like, did the Nazis have like weird, crazy animals? They did, Shawn.
Oh yeah,
Shawn. For my next pick, I'm gonna go with the story of the heck cow, and that is Adolf and his trusty steed,
Mr. Sparkles.
Adolf and Mr. Sparkles.
Episode 39.
Mr. Sparkles, we go right everywhere together.
As we go to get the ice cream and we let him lick it, I take a lick, he takes a lick. Mr. Sparkles, you wait. Because the whole story was like he had this heck cow that was like his favorite cow.
Yeah, but apparently it was like a fucked up, pissed off cow.
Yeah, they were
like
big.
It was huge, and it scared the shit out of everybody.
Yeah, but what made Hitler go mad was because he's like, oh, I've got Mr. Sparkles. Whenever I'm with Mr. Sparkles, I'm also happy. And so, but when I'm into the office, I'm very serious and very, very on point. And we talked about how he was getting ice cream. He's like, Mr. Sparkles, you wait here. I go get some ice cream. And he walks across the street, gets the ice cream, and Mr. Sparkles is like, Mr. Sparkles, no, Mr. Sparkles. Thump, thump. Mr. Sparkles.
And then that's how everyone in the world.
Well, this was really kind of one of the first episodes I feel we created. Like the whole episode was around this one universe of a story.
That's true. That's a good point. I actually didn't consider that.
I think we had a few where we sprinkled in like, oh, it'd be funny if it was this, and we get back on point. But like this one, like the story itself was sprinkled in, but the universe we built about Mr. Sparkles and Adolf took the whole episode.
That was nice. That was a good time. I really don't have much else to say about it. But you should go listen to it. It is one of our earlier ones.
Like episode 39.
Yeah, 39. So, it still sounds okay.
It's not bad. Yeah, I re-listened to it, and on headphones it sounded okay. I didn't listen to it in like a vehicle.
Yeah. So, quality-wise it's fine, and content-wise it's fucking gold.
Yes, it is. All right. So for my 4th round pick, I'm gonna go with this one, I think, too, because you talk about gold, and like I'd mentioned, I felt like there was a run of stories and stuff where I felt like we were just, I don't know if it was the time in our lives or if we were still just kind of giddy about doing this podcast, which I still think all the episodes are good, obviously. I guess I kind of make it sound
they're all my children.
Yeah. But this one talked about a homeless person who really wasn't homeless. He had probably the best homeless place in all of LA.
Oh.
This man, Richard, went by Mr. Dice.
Yes.
And he had his
Mr. Dice.
Yeah. He had his own business right across from the arena that he would sell some hot dogs, Richard.
Mr. Dice's Hot Dog Emporium.
Yeah. Number 136, Mr. Dice's Magical Hot Dog Emporium. What I love about this one is I think this is the episode where I discovered what fancy the song was about. Because I was like, wait, what do you mean she was a prostitute? Yeah, Shawn. She was sent away by her family to be some rich dude's prostitute. Well, that song has a whole different meaning now. We created Bing Bong.
It's not sweet like Pretty Woman. Shawn, about Pretty Woman. What?
I have to go. But Mr. Dice basically had this like really, not I say nice, but he would find a bunch of trash and make it his own treasure.
Yeah.
And in like 6 months, he had his whole like essential house under the freeway destroyed that he rebuilt.
Yep, because the cops showed up and wanted people cleared out, and so they tore down.
Yeah,
Mr. Dice's
home.
Mm.
Yeah, and he had his own doorbell. Bing bong.
Yeah.
Bing bong. The funny part about that is, like we built basically because that was around the Hodor time.
Yeah,
like, I think that episodes were just. I don't know if it was when the hold the door thing happened yet, but
no,
Hodor was very, very common. But we're talking about like Mr. Dice shows up. He's like, man, kind of sad here, isn't it? He's like, Bing bong. Like, yeah, be nice to have our own place, wouldn't it? Bing bong. You sound like a doorbell. Bing bong. But the best part is like we talked about, because we're talking about hot dogs, and then I got hungry for hot dogs. But Mr. Dice would sell hot dogs, make some money, and we came up with our business, which we never moved forward with, but LOB dogs. We got to get that up and going.
That's a good
I'm hungry
point.
for a hot dog right now.
I bet you are.
But yeah, my 4th round pick, Richard, episode 136, Mr. Dice Magical Hot Dog Emporium.
Oh God, we're already I'm at number 5, and I'm already like, oh, but there's this one, and then there's this one.
Which kid do I have to sacrifice?
Okay, so for my next pick, I'm gonna go with one that is funny, but it's another historical, story or whatever. But the story is so outrageous that, of course, it's true. It's fairly recent. It's within the last year. Shawn, it's a tale of a woman and her sexual escapades, her fighting escapades.
Oh, yes.
A lady that made her mark on France. Shawn, for my next pick, I'm going to go with Le Maupin, the story of Le Maupin.
Episode 255, None of Your Business.
Yes.
The Le Maupin story. Oh, man. Yeah, this was like in the 1700s, 1600s?
Something like that, yeah. She'd fight fought 4 dudes at once with a sword and won. She was an actor and a singer. Yeah.
She went to a nunnery because she had the hots for one of the girls that was there, and then brought her out of the nunnery. She turned a girl not only lesbian, but took her out of a nunnery.
Yeah, and then burned the nunnery to the ground.
Yeah. And then when she got tired of that lady, she dropped her off at her mom and dad.
Yeah.
It's like, you kind of nag a lot.
I can't off the like there isn't one specific moment that like automatically sticks out in my brain, but the whole story just in and of itself just sounds so ridiculous.
Well, it was kind of like a Forrest Gump like tale.
Exactly.
It's
yes, that's exactly right.
Any one story, you'd be like, wow, that's really interesting, but it just kept adding on to themselves.
Yeah.
It was, and like, there was like some articles I found, or somebody mentioned this years ago. It's like, oh yeah, there's this like lady in the 1600s, La Maupin, who did all this stuff. I'm like, I think we did an episode on that. And we legit, like, this should be like a Showtime HBO type of like TV series.
100%.
Because you could make it kind of risque, a little bit modern. And I think it just
that's
like,
Showtime After Dark right there. That's what that is. Yeah.
Like, guess what's going to happen at that nunnery?
I'm going to burn it.
None of your business.
So yeah, so like I said, like it wasn't really so much like, oh God, you and I were on point that episode. It was just, I guess I just would like to point people to it because you just have to hear the fucking story because it's so crazy. So crazy. But yeah, that's my pick number 5. It's none of your business. My number 5 is none of your business.
Yeah. Clever wordplay.
You're welcome.
Like you said, that was episode 255. So pretty recent.
Yeah.
My next pick, Richard, I'm going to go with an episode where we discovered a conspiracy. We discovered in this episode, Richard, that like 50 years from now, at the time we listen to it, we're going to be old men. Like, remember when we used to do that podcast thing? And we'll listen to this episode, Richard, and we'll discover that we have to go back in time because somebody who is right now a national treasure isn't a national treasure, Richard. That person is an alien. And that person, Richard,
was he the singer of a very popular band in the 90s?
Yeah, that had 2 hit songs, Richard. That man is the lead singer of Sugar Ray. And this is episode 176. Mark McGrath is an alien.
I still stand by that.
I do too. But it's funny because this was one where you just kind of see like the progression of like, oh, well, this is what would happen. What about this? And it just, you know, it's kind of like one thing people always will mention about the show is we kind of keep things tied together really well, like really good callbacks. And for some reason, Sugar Ray was in my head that day. And we just kind of, you know, we talked about this guy in Casper, Wyoming, who said he was from the future, was looking for the president of the city. And we built this whole story about how like each city was its own country. And they had, you know, by that, they'd have to have their own national anthem. And what if this one wanted 9 to 5 and this one wanted fancy? Who was the savior? Mark McGrath. And he's like, everywhere will be, every morning, there's a halo hanging from my corner. But we learned that those songs are actually warnings, Richard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so we had to go to the future or go to the past to stop alien Mark McGrath. So it was one of those again where like we had like a little bitty title of this guy who just comes to, you know, a weird thing where he's like, I'm from the future. And we end up with Mark McGrath being president of a city, but is actually an alien. So yeah, my 5th round pick, 176, Mark McGrath is an alien.
Okay. Oh, I got 2 left.
This is going to get tough.
This is going to get tough. I think I know where I want to go. All right, Shawn, for my next pick, this is also a fairly recent episode, but I want to point this one out because this idea is so good that, number one, trademark. You're not nobody's stealing this, but it's so good that I need to see it happen. Shawn, I'm going to talk about our very first movie pitch episode.
Oh, nice.
And the reason why is because you and I came up with an idea for a Goonies movie. Another Goonies movie.
Which one was this?
Oh God. I want to say it was our very first movie pitch one. And
it was the Creed one, right? Was the idea?
Yes. And we were talking about like how to do a Goonies remake, and I was like, you still have the whole cast, and you could and you could do one with their kids, but they're in it, like Shawn. So the premise was that the movie was about the kids of, well, not necessarily, like one of them was Sean Astin's kid, but then the big bad in the movie was fucking Josh Brolin, and it was this whole story about like eminent domain and corporatism, and like Sean Astin is like, like, don't you remember? And then Josh Brolin's like, fuck you, Mikey. And they're still like, it's still like kids, looking for treasure and shit. But then like it all comes to like this huge, big conclusion. We pretty much did like a 3-act structure.
Oh yeah,
of a Goonies. Not a sequel. A movie set in the Goonies universe.
Yeah, this is episode 235, the LOB movie pitch, which was the first time we did that concept, and it was the Creed treatment. So the idea was like, it's like Creed, where Creed isn't really a sequel to Rocky. It's kind of like a pendium or a in the universe, but something different.
Yes.
Like we have, like Rocky's in the first one a little bit, but for the most part, it's following a brand new character. Yeah, and I love this episode because I wasn't sure how this would work out, because we make up movie ideas all the time or story ideas, and this was just a way to kind of force ourselves on a specific topic.
Yeah,
and really it was kind of a like, hey, if we tried this, exercise, what would we come up with? And I still love these. We've got like a bunch of ideas to do these in the future. And this one was really just kind of like, we created Back to the Future, doing something with that. Because at this point in time, too, they were saying, should they remake Back to the Future? And we're like, no, you don't remake Back to the Future.
No.
But if you created it, that'd probably be fine. You could probably do something with that.
Yeah.
Same with Jaws. Don't remake Jaws. You create it. So, hey, this is, I think we said it would be the scientist guy, Hooper's granddaughter. She'd be the one to be like, no, this never happened. And she would end up in the same kind of, wacky scenario of being attacked by a shark. But that's a good pick.
But I always like whenever 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 I talk to people about sometimes either the show or, if the subject of like the Goonies or whatever comes up, I'm like, I have an idea for a fucking Goonies movie, and it was a fantastic fucking idea. If I'm ever motivated to write a script for a movie, it would be that.
It'd be a good one.
But yeah, so that's number 6 for me. It is the movie pitch episode. Our first movie pitch episode. We've done other ones.
I like it. Yeah, that's episode 235. LOB movie pitch, Creed treatment. All right, Richard, for my 6th round pick, I don't know if I'd say this is we don't have any drafts on here.
No, we don't.
So I figured it'd be good to kind of have one to point people to. But this one I picked more because it's kind of sentimental and what it kind of achieved. So you think at this point, Richard, we're at episode 68.
Yeah.
We're about a year and 3-4 months into doing this. It's the year 2015, right? Because we started, 2015.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And Smodcast, Kevin Smith's generated stuff, is saying, hey, submit a podcast and you could be a Smodco Pod U featured pod. And we're like, well, let's give it a shot. We submitted one. I was like, maybe we should have submitted a different one. And so Will let me submit this one instead.
Right.
And it's episode 68, the Scary Moment Draft.
Definitely on my list. For the same reason it's on yours.
Because I remember, Richard, we'd been working pretty hard on this. We still work really hard on this, but it was kind of like almost like lightning in a bottle type scenario. Like, are we going to like just capture like the world by the horns with this? I was leaving work because I was feeling kind of down, and I get a tweet that says, hey, we just picked our next Smodco Pod U featured pod, and it's the Language of Bromance. And I was like, "Oh my God, Richard, I'm quitting my job for the 5th time because we're gonna be like fancy."
No joke. He said this at least 4 times.
Richard, this is our fancy moment. You're like, I don't think you know what that song means.
I feel like Pretty Woman.
But the part of this episode, going back and listening to it, that just has me rolling every time I listen to it, is when we're talking about like a moment with Pennywise, and he ends up catching us jerking off in the bathroom, which seems like where all of our stuff falls into.
I was gonna say, I'm noticing a theme. There's a lot of jerking off. There's guys jerking off on moon rocks. There's
in modules on Hawaiian Islands. In hot dog emporiums. But and I kind of think too, as I went back, I think this is where we started the intro with the Bros to Foes, the long intro music. Yeah. But I mean, this, like I said, this got us on the Smodco network in a sense.
Yeah.
It still plays on there. They got a radio where they do live, not really live, but they replay their episodes. It's on there every now and then. When we went and talked to Ming Chen, he had mentioned how like he had heard some of the submissions. He says, "No, your guys' it took a lot to get chosen, so it wasn't just kind of like I'm going to throw a dart. You guys got lucky. It actually was a kind of by committee thing."
Yeah.
And so it felt really good to kind of get that. I don't know if I would say we've had anything that big since.
I mean, in terms of like accolade,
yeah.
I struggle to think.
I mean, we've had some episodes that, like shortly after this, that there was a couple episodes that like jumped in numbers really big.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess like some of the live shows would be pretty monumental.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so for my 6th round pick, it's the one draft that I kind of think of whenever I think of not just drafts, but like kind of, that's kind of a cool thing that came from this podcasting. And that's episode 68, the Scary Moment Draft.
All right. We're at my number 7. So for my number 7, it is an episode that I can't remember if it directly follows or it's just after my first pick, but I picked this one because I thought this episode was hilarious. And also it had Shawn doing one of his out of the many impressions that I say with quotes, this one tickled me the most. Shawn, this is it's a story about a man and a bear in the woods. It's Frontier Leo.
Oh, great. Yeah, this was I remember we had, like I said, there was we had the Bonobo Way as episode 80, right?
Yeah.
And that was the episode that was probably our biggest episode of all time, because essentially it's whenever these chimpanzees find food, they have an orgy. And
right.
Apparently when you put that in Reddit, everybody's like, "Oh my God, I need to see this." And then
they realize that there's no pictures. Yeah. And people are like, "Well, fuck this.
It's just 2 guys jerking off." But then we had Planet of the Emus, yeah, and then the very next episode was Poor Frontier Leo.
Yes.
And this is where it came up with method Frontier Leo.
I'm being method. I'm method.
I'm gonna be out here. I'm gonna sit out here in this tree, and I'm gonna get into the zone. And I'm gonna go fight that damn bear up there. And I'm gonna make love to that bear.
I still have not seen The Revenant because I feel like I just had
it. It's dreary. It's Tom Hardy chasing him down, trying to kill him, and it's a bear that just fucks up his day.
Mm-hmm. That's the way I understand it.
And that's one of those where it was kind of, we've talked about in a recent episode where it's one of those where one of us watches a movie and the other tries to explain it to them in a serious way. It's like, this is a classic movie. It's, an Oscar winning movie. And we break it down to, the bear tried to have sex with Leo. The bear should have got the Oscar, not Leo. He's not trying to be method to win his Oscar.
Yeah.
I was floating in that cold water all day just so I could be method.
Yeah.
Method.
And then Kate Blanchett's like all fucking worried about him.
Yeah.
And then Matt Damon's in there too. And Matt Damon's like, "I already got an Oscar. You won an Oscar for writing." And Leo got his Oscar.
He did.
Eventually.
I think, because I think in that one they hadn't had the Oscars yet. And so it was, so you know what, Richard, from that episode, I bet that's why they gave him the Oscar.
You're probably right.
They're like, we hadn't seen this movie, The Revenant, until we saw this podcast, and they put it in a very funny way. And we're like, well, I want to see Leo in a comedy. This isn't a comedy at
all. Oh God, is there anything else? No, like if you want to hear Shawn do a Leonardo DiCaprio as Sling Blade, you should watch that episode.
Oh, all right. Well, I'm going to go with this one. I'm going to mention the other one, definitely my But I think.
Yeah.
But for my 7th round pick, I want to go with, it's kind of a big milestone for our show. And it's kind of a full circle thing too. It's going to be episode 300, live from the basement where it all began with Dave.
Why'd you pick that one?
Oh, I'll pick the other one.
You picked that one. That's the one where I fucked up.
Oh, yeah, good point. Dang
you
it.
bastard. You did this on purpose.
I forgot about
We are foes now. It finally happened.
But it actually, like, I remember, like, so yeah, I forgot about that actually, because the audio turned out not bad.
No, yeah, you're right. It turned out okay.
But it's the reason I really picked that one because it was 300 episodes in a row for Sundays for 300 weeks. It was back to where, like I said, it's kind of where our friendship not really began, but solidified, I would say. Because when I first started going to Dave's house and hanging out in his basement, it was kind of, I'd say like we hung out, but it wasn't like like that was essentially like, I'm going to bring you home to meet the parents kind of moment.
Yeah.
Like, hey guys, this is my friend Shawn. Things are getting serious. Might start a podcast. But it was interesting conversations, but I think just more part just because it really summed up the long journey that's been, and to look back of, if you're like, well, how did you guys become like true friends and everything? And you'd be like, was it the podcast? It's like, well, I mean, I think the podcast probably definitely helped, definitely ensured that we stayed as close as we are.
100%.
But going back to that, it just kind of it'll put me personally back in that moment, in that place, and be like, yeah, this is kind of where we learned that we have a similar humor. And
that's the room where you decided to do the podcast.
It is too. Yeah. See, it's got that with it as well.
Yeah,
and I recorded it in the same spot physically. I don't think it was the same chair, but the same spot where I'm like, this is stupid. Like, why aren't we doing something more common?
Yeah.
And then on the way home on the road back to my house, sent you a Facebook message, which I don't think I still have at this point. But I'm like, I don't care what you say. We're doing a podcast, and you said new Facebook who dis. But yeah, it's been a fun journey. I've got still a couple that maybe quick hit, but I'm curious what you have for some quick hits that you might not have mentioned.
The Bonobo ones is on there. I did have it on there.
I re-listened. It's good, but I think it's definitely funnier. It's not as funny as I remember. If that makes sense.
Agreed. I 100% agree. We had this. I like this one because we did a whole story about this, but it was the title of the movie that we came up with, and Shawn, that's Love Comes First. Yes. That was on there. Oh,
I was debating on picking that one because that was the story about the kid who won a month-long, basically adventure with a porn star in a hotel room, and he was 16, but apparently wherever he was from, that's legal.
Yeah, I think it was like Russia or something.
Yeah.
Bits and bobs I had on there, and the reason I had that one on there is because we went to Podcast Movement, and that was the episode that was our most recent episode at that point. And so we're standing in this giant crowd of people, and somebody's like, who wants to come up and explain what the last episode of the podcast was? And I'm like, you know what? I got something. And I had to explain to a crowded room full of people that we did a show about us. There's a story about a guy that bites another guy's dick off.
Yep. And the lady that was on stage, her podcast was probably about like, orphan flowers or something like that.
It was.
And she's like, oh, that's funny. Bit him in a sensitive area. Oh, okay. Get off my stage.
Yeah.
I love that. So the first Podcast Movement we went to, we've talked about it in a few episodes, but when we got there, we're like, okay, this is going to be fun. We're going to like meet a bunch of like other comedy podcasts. So like, oh, Bits and Bobs, huh? Biting dicks. That's hilarious. It's not that at all, Richard. Everybody's like, hey, I have a podcast for mental health people who have,
what's your show about? Oh, I talk with disabled veterans and help them get and help them understand their trauma so that way they can eventually get past it and become better people. What about you? Well,
not
same.
Oh, I have a podcast that, discusses, special ed teachers and the troubles and challenges they go through. What do you talk about? That
similar. I had the Brazilian flop and switch.
Oh, I forgot about that one.
About the I liked that story. That one was funny. I don't know why, but I saw the title and it I was like, I vaguely remember the episode, but it was 6 seasons of a talking horse.
Oh, what was that one about?
That was one where we were talking about Mr. Ed. And it was like, they put that shit on TV for 6 years. It's just a horse that just.
But what was the main thing we're talking about on that?
Honestly, I saw the title, so that was like that one was at the bottom of my list, but it was like if I can't think of anything else, I'm like I might hit that one.
What it was, Richard. So it's kind of coming back to me as I look at the show description. So apparently there was a van in Mexico that was decked out with a cannon shooting illegal drugs.
Yes, that was shooting stuff over a wall.
But what we found is that there was horses in Texas that were testing positive for meth. And so that's where we said, like, oh, we got to create the true Hollywood story about Mr. Ed and his partying lifestyle in the 60s.
That's right. That's right. And then the last one, the only other one I had was Trash Day. If you remember Trash Day.
Yeah. That's where the stripper came to like the dude's house.
Yes. The stripper came to the guy across the street was paying hookers to go to the guy's door to go.
Oh, I don't know, Greg. I don't think the HOA allows that, you sick son of a bitch. Linda, if you were my wife, I wouldn't treat you that way. I treat you like a goddess. I wouldn't be banging some whore.
Like Greg, you sick son of a bitch. So yeah,
trash out by 6, not 5:30, asshole.
That was the entirety of my list.
Oh, I love it. Let's see. So, I had the Father's Day episode. Episode 156.
Yeah.
I know that's still kind of a.
I've mentioned it, but I've talked about it. So I was like, do I put that one on there? I was like, no, you've said enough about it.
I still think, and that kind of like we did a Mother Day's episode, and we have like used this to have conversations with people in our lives and stuff, not just us, which I think is kind of something we wouldn't have done without this.
That's true.
So I kind of like that we've done that. We did the podcast festival in Chicago. So episode 234, Green Rush of 76, live at the Chicago Podcast Festival.
Yeah.
This was one of the ultimate highs and lows because like I thought the episode was really good. Like I thought we did a great job on the stage.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there was nobody there.
There were people.
Yeah. Our wives.
No, there was like a few others.
Podcaster.
Whatever.
But
I'm putting on my rose-colored glasses to look at that audience, sir.
That's something if anybody's ever like, we're going to do this festival. Do you guys think you could do it? We've got an episode that shows I think we can. One that is kind of a humble brag, but it's for both of us really is episode 261, Lucy 666, episode 1. Welcome to your new job. I think that turned out really well.
I agree.
One of our more recent interviews, I thought really shows our skill has improved with bringing on guests. And that's episode 285, Touched by the Smuse, the Shecky Don't Like It story with Stephen Chris.
Yeah, that was a good time.
We had your buddy from Twitch.
Lane.
Lane from a couple episodes later.
I thought about putting that one on there too because I felt really I was like, oh, it's a get.
Yeah, that was a good like I think it was a really good conversation.
It was solid. Yeah, it was.
One of the early ones, Loch Ness Rim, where we created a giant robot with a big member.
Yeah, I like that one.
That's the one you said where we were kind of like we kind of like would almost forget we're on mic and start like making up stories, but then be like, oh shit, we're on mic. I got to stop being silly. I've only got 2 more that I had on here. So episode 60, Brocation Adventure Road.
Ooh,
us going to podcast movement, and it's funny because when we're going there, like we're happy, we're excited, and then you listen to part 2 of that, and we're just kind of like, well. We're not an orphan flower podcast. And the last one I just kind of finished up listening before we jumped on here is episode 202, Piranha 2, They Bit My Boob Off.
I remember that.
Yeah, that one we started out, you had a story about like a Fight Club, but we quickly broke into the Meg trailer, which broke us into this Tara Reid being in Piranha 2 movie.
Yes. Because there was something about Tara Reid that I don't fucking remember. But I just remember like Tara Reid was like she ends up being like the fucking Hooper of.
Yeah, she's on the ship with like a scar hunting down one-eyed piranha.
Yes.
And it was Mike Tyson's piranha. But man, it's been a fun journey, and these are just a handful of episodes. And like I said, going back and re-listening and still getting like legitimate gut laughs is awesome. But
agreed.
Well, I'll go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I was gonna close myself out with saying that yes, to a degree, this was us sucking each other off. Talking about this is, but again, like I said at the top. If you're new to the show and you are looking for what are your guys' greatest hits? Like, I don't know if this is our greatest hits, but this is like, a long time ago, you would go to the video store. When you went to the video store, the employees of the video store would have a shelf with movies that they like on the shelf. And so that way, if Todd liked Gremlins, then Gremlins was on his shelf. And so you got a sense of what Tom was like. And I hope that this is our shelf. So that way it gives you an insight into what we like.
So you're telling me I have to get all these MP3s on a cassette and put it on a shelf?
Yes.
Oh, damn it. All right. Well, let me run through these drafts real quick. These recap it just to see all the work I have to do. So Richard for his first pick, episode 84, Planet of the Emus. Second round pick, episode 190, The Farm Upstate is a Restaurant. Episode 66, Suburban Arsonist. Episode 39, Adolf and Mr. Sparkles. Episode 255, None of Your Business, The La Maupin Story. Number 6, episode 235, LOB Movie Pitch, The Creed Treatment. And 7th round money shot pick, episode 85, Poor Frontier Leo. I do think we have great titles too. Like,
that's all you, bud.
Well, I mean, some of them come from you, but I picked those nuggets out.
Yeah.
So for my draft, I had episode 1, first round pick was episode 2, Hey Zombie Bear. Second round pick, episode 87, No in the Mud. Pick 3, episode 169, Captain James Cook's Fish Muffins. Pick number 4, episode 136, Mr. Dice Magical Hot Dog Emporium. Pick number 5, episode 176, Mark McGrath is an Alien. 6th round pick, episode 68, Scary Movie Draft. And 7th round money shot pick, episode 300, live from the basement where it all began with Dave.
I like it. Like the whole thing.
All right. Well, Richard, is there any other closing thoughts you'd like to throw into before we kind of cap this 6-year run of Language of Bromance?
No, I think I said this may not be our best, but it's what we like.
Yeah, I like that. All right, well, let me do a little bit of housekeeping. You visit our website, languageofbromance.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at languageofbro. Email us at bros@languageofbromance.com. You can like us on Facebook. And remember, there's a couple ways to support the show. You can always spread the bromance by liking, retweeting, and, sharing those shows on Reddit. If you want a couple of those little Reddit bumps, hey, share the Emu War or share the one about the orgy. Help me. And you can also pick up some of that sweet LOB merchandise at the T Public store. And remember, if you want to take just a little bit of a bigger step, you can help us by joining our Patreon account. It's www.patreon.com/languageofbromance. We always want to thank our patrons, Wendy, Aaron, and Shane. Thank you guys so much for being
apparently I owe Shane a
Army.
hug or something.
I think you owe more than that.
God damn it.
It's a mouth
Not
hug.
again.
Oh, we no-noted.
The things I do for the entertainment.
Hey, $20 is $20.
I want to be a star, don't I?
All right. Well, is there anything else before I close her out?
I'm good.
All right. Well, that's all the bros have for this show. I'm Shawn.
And I'm Richard.
And remember, don't be a why.
Be a why
be a
not.
Why not? Happy 6th Broniversary, Richard.
Oh, you too, bud. I totally forgot to say that. Not like I forgot or anything.
Yeah, you did remember to record this time, right? Not like episode 300.
You son of a bitch.